I'm knocking these blocks out like there's no tomorrow because I'm ready to get caught up. Hey friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Becca, and in today's video, we're going to do block number 4 for the Bright Side Quilt Along. This is a block of the month program that is included in the Fat Quarter Shop Sew Sampler box. It started in April 2021 and will conclude with the March 2022 box, which, although that's next month, given all the supply and demand issues, that might be a little bit delayed. So that's a great chance for me to catch up before we actually get March. So I'm kicking it into high gear. I did promise to do a video for every one of the blocks in the Bright Side Quilt Along, and that's what I'm doing right now, is giving you a video showing you how I put my block together so that if you want to do this sew along, you can. This is not a block of the month program that is exclusive to only sew samplers. We do get that pattern in our box for free. However, if you want to do it, if you like the blocks that I'm doing, they seem to be pretty simple so far. You can pick up all of these patterns over the Fat Quarter Shop website, and in the first comment down below this video, I will link to the PDF download of this pattern that you can buy. If you're enjoying this series, or you just like seeing me make videos, consider hitting that subscribe button down below and ringing the bell off to the right of it. That'll let me know that you like the videos that I'm making, and it'll encourage me to keep doing what I'm doing. All right, without any further ado, let's get into the block. As always, I can't give you the cutting instructions because this isn't a free pattern. So I have starched my fabric, I have cut my fabric, I have labeled my fabric, and I am ready to go. So we're going to start off with step number 1. The pattern tells us to take our fabric A and our fabric C squares, and we're going to use those to make some half square triangle units. We're going to follow the 2 at a time method, which means we're going to draw a diagonal line on the back side of each of our background squares. And then we're going to pair it up, right sides together, with our print fabric. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew 1/4 of an inch on either side of that line that we just drew on the wrong side of our fabric. Once we've sewn those units together, it's time to cut them apart. So we're going to take our ruler and our rotary cutter, and we're just going to cut right on that line that we just drew. This is going to give us 4 half square triangle units that when we press open with our fingers will look something like that. I'm going to take a minute to open all these up and give them a good pressing, and then I'm going to square them down to what the pattern says they should size up to. I always like to give my blocks a good press before I square them up. That just makes sure that I am getting a very accurate cut. I'm going to grab my square ruler and line up that 45-degree diagonal line right where those 2 fabrics meet, making sure that I have fabric extending off the top and the right side, as well as past the left side and lower line for whatever size I want this half square triangle unit to measure up to. Once I have this corner up here nice and perfect, and what I'm looking for are these 2 fabrics to come to a perfect point right up here in this corner, I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to line up the line for the size that I want this trimmed up to on the left side and on the bottom, and keep an eye on that 45-degree line and make sure that that's still laying right on top of that seam. And I like to, when I'm working with half square triangle units, if my seam is a little bit wobbly, I'm going to aim for the corners to be perfectly lined up with my 45-degree line on my ruler. That'll just make sure that when I sew this into the quilt, I'll have an easier time matching points up. I care less about the middle of the block being a little wonky than I do the corners. But if you sewed with a perfectly straight stitch, that shouldn't be a problem for you. Our half square triangle units are now all squared up and done. We're ready to move on to step 2. In step 2, we're going to take our fabric D and our fabric B squares, and we're going to make some 4 patches. In fact, we're going to make 4 patches. Let me show you how it's done. This is not directional fabric, so the easiest way for me to do this is to make stacks of my print and my background squares. I'm just making sure that all of the fabrics are going in the same direction. I want them right sides up to make my life a little bit easier. The tone-on-tones, by the way, were already organized right sides up. Whenever I cut my tone-on-tone fabric, I take the time to re-stack them with all of the prints facing up, because I have a heck of a time sometimes seeing what side is the right side of the fabric when I'm working with tone-on-tone. So if I make sure that I stack them so they're all face up or all face down, whatever one, they're all going the same direction, I don't have to second guess when I'm at the machine. So I'm going to take these 2 stacks of squares, and I'm just going to take a seam along each one. So I'm going to make 8 sets of this, and then we're going to turn these 8 sets of little 2 squares into our 4 patches, 4 of them. I'm actually going to chain piece this, which means I'm going to keep stitching without breaking my thread in between each new seam that I'm going to take. Check out how this works. All of my pieces are now connected on a string that looks like this. I'm going to cut them apart, and then I'm going to sew them into 4 patches. This is the Blade Saver tool from Purple Hobbies. There are several tools that are like this, and a lot of machines, including mine, have a little blade on the side that you can use to do this. But sometimes if you've got a lot of pieces that are chain stitched together and you need to just break the thread, it's a little bit more ergonomic and a little bit more comfortable to get a tool like this, set it in front of you, and just do this motion rather than trying to reach behind and break the thread on 100 different seams. I actually love that tool. I've got a demo video on how that tool works that I will link to up here and down there if you want to check it out. And if you want to pick one of those up, I have an affiliate link for you in the first comment down below this video. Now I'm going to take the time to open up all of these little 2 patches, and I'm going to press every single set over towards the dark side. When I have lots of little pieces like this, I like to just kind of get it all laid out on my little pressing board, scattered about, everything's finger pressed, and then I bring in the hot iron and one fell swoop and press them all at the same time. I don't know if I'm really saving time by doing that, but in my head I think I am, and that's all that matters. Now that I have all those pressed, I'm going to create 2 stacks of 4, and I'm going to set it up so that I have my background fabrics going opposite corners and my print fabrics going opposite corners. And here's the fun thing. It does not matter whether you sew with the print in the upper or lower left corner, upper left corner, or you sew with the background in the upper left corner, because once you sew the block together and you spin it 90 degrees, you'll change the look of the block entirely. So really what matters, because this isn't directional fabric, is that you just make sure it's oriented the right way when you sew it into block 3. So let's go take our seam. Because I took the time to press all of these fabrics over to the background, everything should nest together quite nicely. So I'm just going to chain stitch all these 4 patches. Same thing as before. I'm going to use my blade saver to cut those 4 patches apart. And now I'm just going to press them nice and flat. It does say we should be pressing this down, and just to make sure everything nests properly, I'm going to make sure that my print fabric is in the upper left-hand corner, and then I'm going to press the seam down towards me. Now that our 4 patches are done, we're ready to move on to step 3. What we're going to do is take our 4 patches and lay them out so that we have our print fabric in the upper left position. We're going to put 2 of them there. Then we're going to take 2 half square triangle units and put them right next to it and make sure that the print fabric is facing down and to the left. And then we're going to add our last 2 4 patches on the right, making sure they're in the same orientation as the 4 patches that are on the left. So this is facing towards me. If I spin it around and show you, this is what your row should look like. We're going to take our seams here, and we're going to press this seam out towards the 4 patch. Now I am pressing these seams out towards the 4 patch. I'm smoothing the seam down with my hand, just applying a little bit of pressure, not trying to put any tension on the fabric or stretch it in any way. And then I'm going to grab my iron and really set those seams in. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of bulk right here where the 4 patches are coming. It's not horrible, it's definitely laying flat, but if I really wanted to convince that to lay flat, I could mist it a little bit with some steam or some best press and then apply a clapper right on top of the seam to get it to cool down super flat, which is going to set the memory for the fabric to be even flatter than it normally would when you were just pressing. Now that our outer rows are both built, it's time to fill in the middle. So we're going to take our fabric E and we're going to put it straight in the middle there. And then we're going to take our half square triangle units and we're going to have the print kissing or pointing towards the other half square triangle unit. So we've kind of got like this ribbon thing going on. We're going to sew these 2 seams together and then press the seams in towards the middle. Now that all 3 of our rows are built, our final step is to sew all 3 rows together. And because we followed the pressing instructions in the pattern, everything should nest perfectly. pressing the top row down towards the middle. Then we're going to press our bottom row in towards the center too. Now I am feeling a bit of bulk in these four corners where this center square is, so I'm going to take an extra step to make this block really cooperate and lay flat. I'm first going to make sure I feel everything with my hands and the seams feel like they're all going in the right direction. I'm going to put a hot dry iron right on top of the block and just kind of lightly smooth it over and apply pressure where those seams are. When I move the hot iron back and forth in the fabric like this, I am very gently touching the fabric. I'm not pushing, I'm just gliding it across. If I push, I could cause the seams to get distorted. Now for most people that might be flat enough, but I really like my blocks super flat and really stiff. So I'm going to take a second to grab my mister, which is filled with full-on best press. And I'm going to take this gargantuan 12-inch square clapper that I got from Hard Rock Woodworks and I absolutely love, but it is mega heavy. And I am going to press the block so that I am drying all of that best press out of it. I'll see the steam come up from the block as the best press is evaporating. Same rule, when you're gliding the iron over the fabric, don't push, don't pull, just let it glide. And then after the block feels nice and hot and dry, I'm going to take this bad boy and set it on top of the block and wait for it to cool down. This piece of wood acts just like a clapper. In fact, it is a clapper. The way a clapper works is it applies constant uniform pressure to your seam, or in this case, my entire block, while the block is cooling down. We all know fabric has memory, and the way we reset our fabric's memory is when we heat it up, put it in a different position, and allow it to cool. And sometimes we need to give it a little bit of moisture or starch to really help it forget the way it was laying before and learn its new way to lay. When we lay a clapper on top of our seam like this, the wood is absorbing the heat from the block while applying that uniform flat pressure to your seams. So as the fabric cools down from being heated up, those seams are becoming even flatter than they were before. My trick to getting my blocks super flat is dry pressing it, starching it, and then if there's bulk, using a clapper of some sort. It never fails me. That's it. This is our block. Time to square it up. So here is block number 4. This is super cute. I love this block. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I'm really enjoying this sew along and I can't wait to get caught up. Block 5 should be released very soon, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell off to the right of it. That'll make sure that YouTube knows you want to be alerted when I post videos so you don't miss block 5. If you haven't started this block yet and you're not a Sew Sampler member, don't forget to use the link in the first comment down below the video to pick up the block pattern. Otherwise, if you are a Sew Sampler member, why are you not making these? They are super easy and a lot of fun, and you could totally sew it with your own stash. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!